Hey guys, it's Matt, Trendlover 9483. In today's video, we're going to be checking out this nickel plate road 2662 Mallet steam engine from Lionel. Much like all the reviews I do these days, we'll start off by talking about the history on this locomotive so you guys can learn a little bit about the prototype. And then after that, we'll take a look in detail at Lionel's model of this locomotive. Okay, so the 2662 was a steam locomotive that was developed by the United States Railroad Administration, or the USRA, during World War I. It was a compound articulated type steam engine, and one of the distinguishing features of it was that it had a set of low pressure cylinders and a set of high pressure cylinders. The low pressure ones, they were smaller and they powered the rear set of drivers back here, and then the larger low pressure ones powered the front set up here. Pretty cool. 30 of these locomotives were built. The Chesapeake and Ohio Railway and the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railway, they actually ordered them. The first Mallet was actually delivered to the Wheeling and Lake Erie in 1919, although the C&O Railway ordered them in 1911 from Elko. And the nickel plate road, they leased them from the Wheeling and Lake Erie, and they renumbered them and used them for their railroad. Now the C&O, like I said, they ordered them from Elko in 1911, and they used them to replace the 280 that they had. And because of the way the Mallet is, it's the two sets of drivers under one boiler. They were used for their runs in mountains and other branch lines and stuff like that, so they were used for that purpose. And also in 1949, the C&O ordered the H6 class of 2662s. Those were numbered 1300 to 1309, and they were used quite extensively until the last ones were retired in 1957. Most of them were scrapped, although they do have number 1308 in the care of a railroad historical society in West Virginia, and number 1309, that's being restored at the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. So now with all the history taken care of, let's take a look at Lionel's model. Okay, so the 2662 Mallet is nothing new to Lionel. They have done it before. They did it with TMCC and Rail Sounds 4 the first go around. I believe that was in the mid 2000s, but I could be wrong. It might be closer to like 2001 or 2 or something like that. But in any case, that engine has been done before. But this new legacy rendition was made available in Lionel's 2012 catalog, so that makes it about 3 years old or so at the time of this video. Some of its features include that it has the legacy control system equipped, so you can run it using the legacy system, the TMCC, or you can also run this engine conventionally. It has the whistle smoke feature, so when you hit the whistle, the steam shoots out. That's a really cool feature. We'll take a look at that in a couple minutes. It's got the Odyssey speed control, and like any legacy equipped engine, the speed control on this engine is fantastic. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It includes a very nice lighting package on this engine. It's got your typical lighting package on a steamer, you know, your headlights, your marker lights, your number boards. It's got a backup light on the rear of the tender and a cab light. And it's just got a lot of really nice details and other features that we'll take a look at. So without any further ado, let's take a look at some detail, and then we'll run it a little later. Okay, so let's start by taking a look at some details on this engine. We'll start up here on the pilot. On the pilot, we have these steps that are applied. These look great. Then we have a cow catcher assembly here. We have a scale coupler. Now, like with most scale steam engines nowadays, this coupler can be replaced with a non-functioning 3-rail coupler for double heading. And then we also have a coupler cut bar, and it does move like that. Pretty cool. Moving up past the pilot on this engine, we have a safety treaded deck here. It looks really good. Then we have some handrail work. It looks really interesting. I really like it. Then we have the headlight with lighted number boards on either side of the headlight. And then coming up top some more on the boiler front, we have the engine's row number 943. And then we have these tanks up on top here where the smoke box front usually would be. And this is a characteristic of the USRE steamers. I don't know exactly what this stuff leads to. If anyone knows, please let me know. And then we also have a little swinging bell right here. Pretty cool. Moving down towards the side of the engine here, we have one of the sets of drivers on this train. Now the drive gear on this set looks really busy, and it's the same drive gear that's on the rear set. Now what distinguishes this set is that this is the articulated set. So when you run around a curve, this is what you'll see. It's got the articulation on it, and it's really cool. And that's one of the hallmark features of an articulated steam engine, is the articulating front driver, and it looks really cool when you're running around a curve. Then coming up some more, here we have a builder's plate, and then we have these pipes, and they look fantastic. Moving down some more, we have the second set of drivers. Now I want you to take note of one thing, that being the size of the cylinders. Now this is the high pressure set, and these are the smaller ones, and you can see that there is a difference in size. This is the smaller set, and then here is the bigger set. You can tell there's a difference, and I think that's really cool that Lionel captured it on this model. Instead of putting two of the same size cylinders, they actually did it right, and I think that's really cool, so kudos to Lionel on that. Moving down past the driver sets on this engine, we have the ash pan here, and now this has some really interesting pipework on it, and it looks really good. And then down here we have the ash pan glow effect. Now for you guys who may not know what that is, the ash pan glow effect is a feature that when the engine moves, you get a red glow from the ash pan, and as the engine picks up speed, that red glow gets more intense. It's a really cool feature, and keep an eye on it when I run the engine, because you may be able to see it when I do the run bys and such. Maybe you'll be able to catch it. It's a really cool feature, and it looks really cool, especially when you run the engine at night, because it's a little easier to see it, especially because the lights are off. But it looks really good. And then down here we have a trailing truck that has some very nice detail on it, and then we have these injectors which look great. Okay, so now let's take a look inside the cab. Now I brought on a flashlight so you guys can see this a little bit better, but inside the cab we have a back head that has painted gauges and lighted gauges. That's really cool. We have an engineer and a fireman figure in there. Then we have a lighted firebox glow that looks really cool, and then there also is a cap light inside. Now, as with most legacy engines, when the engine starts moving, that light does shut off. Okay, so now let's take a look up on top of the engine. We'll start off by taking a look at the number boards. Now these read the engine's road number 943, and when you have the track power applied, they actually light up to tell you that the engine is receiving power. That's a pretty cool feature. And then we have a smokestack. Now this does contain an operating smoke unit. It contains one of the two operating smoke units on this engine. To load fluid, you load it just like you would with any other smoke unit. Just pour your fluid directly down the stack. And the second smoke unit powers the whistle steam smoke effect. We'll take a look at this in just a second. And underneath this dome, if you pop the top off, see if I can get it off, there it goes, we have a fill hole, and that fill hole is used to smoke the whistle smoke generator. Pretty cool. Okay, so now we come to the whistle, and as I said just a minute ago, this engine does contain the whistle steam smoke effect. It's a feature that Lionel's been putting in their steam engines for a number of years now, and it's a really cool feature. Now on this engine, what makes it a little special is that this engine has a really good designed whistle steam smoke effect. As you guys can see, when I blow the whistle on this engine, the smoke just shoots straight up into the air, and it really looks great. And it's a really cool feature, and I really like that it's now on all the legacy steamers that they're putting out nowadays. I do realize that they have stopped it for a couple years, but now it's back, and it's a great feature to have. Moving past the whistle, we have some separately applied pop-off valves. These look really good. There's 4 of them, and they look really good. And then this dome, if we pop the top off this one, there it goes, we have the control switches for the engine. Those include the smoke controls, the run program, and the Odyssey control switches. Now, there is a smoke unit for both the stack and the whistle smoke, so that's a pretty cool feature. Especially if you, let's say there's a time you don't want to run the whistle smoke, you can shut it off and you don't have to worry about smoking it. That's pretty cool. Moving down some more towards the top of the cab, we have this dynamo generator piece that's been separately applied. It looks really good. And then we have this detail here. This is a really interesting piece. I'm not exactly sure what it is. If anyone knows, please let me know. And then up on top of the cab we have two little roof vents, and they open up like that. So that takes care of the locomotive. Now let's take a look at the tender. The sides of the tender look great. We have the nickel plate road name that's been applied to the tender. It looks fantastic. We also have some rivet detail, and then the truck side frames look really good as well. Here's something worth mentioning. We're right below the coal load on the tender, and one of the things we have here is the reporting marks for the route that the nickel plate road ran along, that being the New York City and St. Louis route. And then right below it we have the WLE lessor. Now what that means is that if you remember when I talked about the history on the Mallet, the nickel plate road never bought any Mallets. They leased them from the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad, so that's what that means. That's pretty cool. Now let's take a look at the back of the tender. On the back of the tender we have an operating reverse light with lighted number boards on either side of the reverse light. Now these number boards, they only turn on when the reverse light's on. Then we have a ladder piece right here. We have an operating electrocoupler that can be thrown using any one of your Lionel remotes. And then we have the engine's road number and some information regarding the coal and water levels. Finally, we come to the top of the tender. Up on top of the tender we have a real coal load. That's always nice to see. And then back here on this hatch, if we lift it up, that reveals a control, and that control is the master volume control. That's a pretty cool feature there. Okay, so that takes care of the details on this engine. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and bring it up to the upper level of track and run it for a little while. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the details on this nickel plate road Mallet, let's go ahead and power it up and give it a listen. Quickly, before we power this engine on, I'll give you my favorite feature and then we'll get going. My favorite feature on this engine is the whistle. I think it sounds really good and you guys will hear it in just a second. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get going.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over. I read you. Over. Please start her up and stand by for track orders. Roger that. Ready to move. Out.
Okay, here's the whistle. Here's the bell. That, of course, was the continuous ringing bell. You can do a single head bell if you want to. Here's the water injector sound. Here's the coal refilling sound.
My call's full. Over. Acknowledged. Out.
And finally the steam blowdown sound. Okay, so last but not least, before we go, let's give a listen to some of the crew talk sounds. Now I know some of you guys may not like the crew talk. I happen to like it. and I think it's a very fun feature to use. But if you don't like it, just remember it's an optional feature. You do not have to use it. Anyway, let's give a listen to some of it.
All handbrakes are knocked off. Am I clear? Over. Negative. Hold your position. Over. Roger that. Standing by. Out. Dispatcher here. Please stand by. Over. Copy that. Standing by. Out. Train is ready to go. Can I depart? Over. Yes, you're cleared onto the main. Over. Yes, sir. I'm green. Out.
Here's one more.
Dispatcher here. Take the green. Over. Yes, sir. I have a clear signal. Out.
Alright, so there's your crew talk. So now let's get some cars behind this train and get it going. Okay, so we're all set and ready to go. I got some cars behind the engine. I've got a mix of 40-foot box cars and a whole bunch of tank cars. So we'll go ahead and get going here. I'll put the engine in sequence control by holding down the aux 1 key. Alright, it's in sequence control, so let's get it going here.
Dispatcher, I got a clear signal. Cleared outbound. Over. Copy that. Out. You're
Well, anyway guys, that about wraps it up for this review. This engine is a fantastic piece, and if you have one of these, you know that's a really nice engine. If you're interested in purchasing one of these engines retail for right around $1,300. Although if you can find one and you go through a good Lionel dealer, you probably could get a discount off that price. These engines are a little hard to come by, but if you can find one, you wouldn't regret it. It's an awesome piece. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I'm Matt, Trend of 43. We'll catch you guys later.